Max Boot, who in normal circumstances turns my stomach, but in the past couple of years, when Max all of a sudden found that he had a political soul, I guess, or something, and became a fierce critic of the Orange Bastard, he wrote this yesterday. I've got to share this with you. He writes, "It's hard to overstate the enormity of what occurred on January 6th, a date that will live in infamy along December 7th, 1941 and September 11th, 2001. This was the first time the U.S. Capitol had been ransacked since the War of 1812, and the first time ever that the United States has not experienced a peaceful transfer of power. As a result, Donald Trump has become the only president ever impeached twice, and troops have been sleeping at the Capitol, a scene reminiscent of the Civil War." Yeah. Max goes on, 5 people died during the storming of the Capitol. And it could have been a whole lot worse. The attackers chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," came within a minute of finding the vice president. Federal prosecutors allege that a retired Air Force officer who was carrying zip-tie handcuffs wanted to, quote, "kidnap, restrain, perhaps try, perhaps execute members of the U.S. government," end quote. Police officers interviewed by the Washington Post described, quote, "a medieval battle scene," end quote, with rioters, quote, "battering the officers with metal pipes peeled from scaffolding and a pole with an American flag attached," end quote. Then he mentions that all this was at Donald Trump's instigation. And he writes, "While holding Trump to account is necessary, it is also insufficient. There is a whole infrastructure of incitement that will remain intact even after Trump leaves office. Just as we do with foreign terrorist groups, so with domestic terrorists. We need to shut down the influencers who radicalize people and set them on the path toward violence and sedition." Some argue, Max writes, that trying to silence the voices of insurrection is a hopeless task, that hate will always find a way to get through. And that's true. It's true that there is a danger that seditious plots will now move to encrypted messaging apps such as Telegram, where they will be harder to track. But research firm Signal Labs found that online misinformation about election fraud fell 73% after Trump and key allies were suspended from social media. That's a good start. Anyone who cherishes our democracy should be grateful to the management of Facebook, Twitter, and other social media sites for their newfound sense of social responsibility. We should expect at least the same level of responsibility from broadcast media, and in particular from Fox News, which has the largest reach on the right. To its credit, Fox News acknowledged that Joe Biden won. May I pause a moment? Talk about damning with faint praise. There is what that saying means. To its credit, Fox News acknowledged that Joe Biden won. But, reports Media Matters for America, quote, "in the 2 weeks after Fox News called the election for Biden, Fox News cast doubt on the results of the election at least 774 times," end quote. According to NPR, Fox Business host Lou Dobbs and Trump's opponents in the government were guilty of treason, and that it would be criminal for Republicans to recognize Biden's victory. Fox News host Mark Levin told viewers, Quote, if we don't fight on January 6th on the floor of the Senate and the House, and that is the joint meeting of Congress on these elections, then we're done. End quote. Let me digress from Max. See, I think Lou Dobbs and Mark Levin or Levin, whatever the hell his name is, I think they should be put on trial for treason also, for incitement to treason. I really do. I mean, I realize that I have a very simplistic approach to some of these fuckers. I understand that. I get that. I don't have that briefcase of nuances. I don't have the ability to conjure up mitigating circumstances that might alleviate some of their guilt. No, fuck no. You know what I think about these people? You rotten bastards. You did everything you could for the past 4, 5, 6, 7 years to incite this. And if you take that dying of cancer prick, Rush Limbaugh, who's been trying to get this kind of terror in the streets of America for 30 years, and the little piglets that came after him, like this little son of a bitch, Sean Hannity, and the rest of the vermin over at Fox Sewer, I think all of you, every one of you, should be thrown out of the fucking country. I do. I believe that. You know, there was a book written about a man without a country. That's what these people should be. And the bitches who have also led this avalanche of lies and misinformation and deceit. All of you, round them up. Get them the fuck out of here. That's how I feel. Max goes on. The pro-Trump insurrectionists were listening to Fox. To take but one example, the Post reports that Ashley Babbitt, who was killed in the attack, quote, was an avid viewer of Fox News, praising Tucker Carlson and other far-right media personalities on the network as she derided their liberal targets, end quote. Of course, she's dead now, right? This is, Max writes, dismaying but hardly surprising. As the New York Times notes, quote, Fox has long been the favorite channel of pro-Trump militants. The man who mailed pipe bombs to CNN in 2018 watched Fox News, according to him, religiously. Cumulus Media, one of America's largest talk radio companies, has ordered its hosts, who include some Fox News personalities, to stop spreading false claims of election fraud. But Fox News itself has issued no such order. James and Catherine Murdoch, part of the family that control Fox News, just called on, quote, media property owners, end quote, to stop propagating what James and Catherine call lies that have, quote, unleashed insidious and uncontrollable forces, end quote. If James Murdoch's brother, Lachlan, who's the co-chairman of News Corp and chief executive of Fox Corporation, and his father, Rupert, won't listen, then large cable companies such as Comcast and Charter Spectrum, which carry Fox News and provide much of its revenue in the form of user fees, needs to step in and kick Fox News off. And as smaller competitors such as One America News and Newsmax continue to incite viewers, they too should be booted off. But while we should expect better behavior from media executives, we shouldn't count on it. CNN, where I'm a global affairs analyst, CNN notes that the United Kingdom doesn't have its own version of Fox News because it has a government regulator that metes out hefty fines to broadcasters that violate minimal standards of impartiality and accuracy. The United States hasn't had that since the FCC stopped enforcing the Fairness Doctrine in the 1980s. As president, Biden needs to reinvigorate the FCC, or else the terrorism we saw on January 6th may be only the beginning, rather than the end, of the plot against America. Oh my God, have I been advocating that for, it seems like, forever. All of these right-wing son of a bitches have no business, none, being on any kind of medium. The First Amendment does not protect these son of a bitches like the please hurry up and die Limbaugh, cancer-eaten Rush Limbaugh and his little followers to instigate terror, hatred, disruption, death, destruction in this country. On January 6th, we had a first-hand example of what these bastards have been advocating for years. And I'm sure the pig man, knowing that he's soon going to die, probably was just overjoyed that he had a chance to see it before he turns into worm food. Filthy bastard. I am just very pissed off. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.